Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Aaron Bisman. I'm Director of Brand Sales and Marketing here at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I'm also one of the co-producers of Jazz Congress. So thanks for being here at the conference. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this session, and thank you for being here at the Congress overall. Very excited for this session. So you're here at Perfect Pitch, the $1,000 Marketing Plan Challenge. We have 5 independent artists who are each going to have 6 minutes to present a marketing plan for an album or a tour that they're planning. And in those plans, we've given them a template to work from. And the template includes an articulation of strategy, what the overall idea is of how they can get audiences to take whatever their desired action is, whether that's an album purchase or a stream or event attendance, a tagline, a truly short, catchy phrase that helps explain or at least entice folks about their project, as well as the hardcore tools and tactics of the marketing itself. So they, sorry, excuse me, my notes are. I'm going to use the excuse of being the conference organizer to say for this session, it took me a second. Okay, so our top line goal here really is learning for all of us. That all together, we're going to get to learn from the presenters, and I really want to commend them. We opened this up. We had many more people apply than we could have participate, and I want to just thank in advance and commend our presenters. It's not easy to get up here. It's not easy to get up here and do something on a clock, which is what they're going to do. So we've asked them to do many things which could be happening for the first time here. And so again, thank you in advance for going along with us. And we're going to have a chance to learn not only from the presenters, but from our esteemed panel of judges, who I'll introduce in a moment, and the constructive feedback that they're going to share. So our presenters will have 6 minutes each to present, and then our judges in real time will provide feedback. So the judges have seen the presentations in advance. This is not a competition of presentation skills, right? This is really about content. So we want to think about that. So judges have had a chance to review in advance. And then at the end, while our judges step away for a few minutes to deliberate, I'm going to invite the presenters up, and we'll do a short Q&A, if time allows, with the presenters. Sound good? We all clear? Okay, cool. Just one last note. I just want to also give a shout out Jake Cohen, who's the product and marketing manager here. Jake. He's product and marketing manager for Blue Engine Records, our in-house record label, and Jake served as a coach. So he did one-on-one conversations with all the presenters and helped them through rehearsals in this room, as well as some of the logistics. So we thank him for that as well. Okay, here we go. To my immediate left is India Haggins, Director of Ticket Sales and Marketing here at Jazz at Lincoln Center. India is responsible for subscriptions, single ticket sales, and audience acquisition marketing strategy for all of our live events. So our concert season in Rose Theater in the Appel Room, as well as in Dizzy's Club. I'm very lucky that we get to work together on a pretty much daily basis. She has a long history, over 16 years, in nonprofit arts marketing at Alvin Ailey and New York City Center before coming here to Jazz Lincoln Center. So India, thank you for joining us. To her left is Denny Stilwell, president of Mack Avenue Records. And I learned yesterday on another session, Denny's been with Mack Avenue since record 3?
Yes.
Record 3, which is going back almost 20 years?
Since
Sorry,
2002.
I'm making you do your own introduction. I apologize. Denny is also on the advisory board for Jazz Congress. So an extra shout out to Denny for helping us. He did a lot of planning calls and gave us a lot of feedback and ideas for the whole conference. And to Denny's left is Meghan Stabile, who is the visionary music industry trailblazer, likely best known, certainly how I got to know her through Revive Music. She's the president and CEO of Revive Music Group, has done work with Blue Note as an executive producer, and is now a creative and brand consultant to a number of independent artists, and a great event producer and marketer herself. So Meghan, thank you for being here with us. Okay, and with that, I'm going to invite up Steve Ballmer to get us started.
All right. Thank you very much. It's an honor, and thank you for letting me tell my story about Peter and the Wolf, which is about concertizing our jazz version, Peter and the Wolf. My name is Steve Ballmer. I am bassist president with the New England Jazz Ensemble, and in the story of the jazz Peter and the Wolf, I play the role of Grandpa. All right, so what are my goals? My goal are to present 6 to 10 tandem, both in school and public concerts in the evening, featuring the New England Jazz Ensemble's Peter and the Wolf. Our goal is to endear student, novice, neophyte, and jazz audiences to our music, using both the storytelling aspects and the artistry of the work, which I'm quite proud of, as a matter of fact. We also provide music educators a jazz-oriented curriculum and live performance experience using Peter and the Wolf, and we actually tie it to the Common Core education standards as well as the National Core Arts Anchor standards so that they can integrate it right into their curriculum. And I like to, we use our in-school performances to inspire creativity of all kinds to empower young minds. I always talk about anybody out there create an internet meme and get likes, or a poem or a painting or a picture. And jazz is just our form of expression and creativity. So I try to use jazz as a creative expression across all forms. So our audiences, arts-curious jazz, general public audiences. Peter and the Wolf appeals to a lot of people, so even people who, quote, hate jazz like Peter and the Wolf. We've had successful student audiences from grades 3 to 12. The third graders managed to sit still while we're telling our hip story. Teachers and music educators, where we want to go right into the classroom. And because we're a 18-piece in this instance, I'm limiting my audience to New England and the tri-state area. So our audience will get the highest levels of jazz performance and arranging and composing as part of this, using the educational storytelling context of Peter and the Wolf. Our in-school concerts include pre and post QA with the arrangers or the performers or the librettist. And then we do clinics with the students. This is myself hiding back there and Mr. John Mastriani at a performance at Kingswood Oxford School in West Hartford. And so we like to get, right integrated with the students. So my strategy is to identify and reach out to somewhere between 100 and 200 private and public schools with some sort of elevated interest in jazz. They have a jazz ensemble, jazz choir, they go to jazz competitions, and I'm trying to attain like a 5% success rate, which would get me to the 6 to 10 concerts, hopefully. So I hope that's not too overly optimistic. So we'll collaborate with school and regional music directors. So by that I mean other artistic directors. We've collaborated with regional symphony orchestras because they have an interest in the Peter and the Wolf idea to present jazz. But the way it works typically is I like to do an in-school concert during the day using a pretty decent auditorium, stay set up, and then use that same venue for a public concert at night. Saves on costs, saves on logistics, all that kind of stuff. And so far, the school performance pays, I think a half is being generous, but maybe a third to a half if they have the money. And the public concert and CD sales will cover the remaining costs. I'm also a 501c3, so I get to apply for grants. Was very excited about Jazz Road this morning at the session. We have a lot of educators in our band, so they have their networks. We have good reviews, and we have 4 previous performances to use as references. And once again, we're a nonprofit. We're all volunteer, no executive director. We're too small, so I can assure you $1,000 goes a long way in my little organization. So our story is, this is Peter and the Wolf, the contemporary reimagination of the iconic Peter and the Wolf story. The gentleman at the piano is Walt Gordiak, so he used 13 plus jazz styles to reimagine the Prokofiev original. And Giacomo Gates, who some of you may know, is a vocalese artist. He rewrote the libretto in jazz hipster language, so it brings a fresh new story to tell, so it appeals to a wide audience. We use the instruments and themes in the jazz ensemble to represent the story's characters, just like the original work, and it's very successful from that. But, first and foremost, it's a jazz project, so there's complexity, there's lots of room for improvisation, there's deep. So we get to bring, really high quality and deep jazz to a wide variety of audiences. So, and like I said, everybody's like, oh yeah, I remember Peter and the Wolf, that's great. So our tagline is, who's afraid of the big band wolf? So when, I like having a tagline that's a question, so, people will click on it when we have small ad space and they go to our website and the answer is go buy a CD and find out what the answer is, so. Tools and tactics, direct outreach materials. I put little dollar signs where I would definitely use the money here. So I have a curriculum underway with some jazz education people that I know, but I want to spend some money and fully develop and finish the integration of a formal curriculum so I can present it as an entire package to schools. I'll use some money for publishing in jazz education journals, some mentioned here. We have all the requisites, audio, video. I have a YouTube video. There's a screenshot of me presenting the concept and the project to people. And once we get the gigs, we help with concert promotion. So I'm a big social media fan, all about jazz. I've used Facebook boosted ads to sell CDs around holiday time because we have a Christmas CD, all the requisite stuff. I might spend a little money on curated email lists so that I can expand my reach beyond what we have. Press release promos. And then here's an example of a poster we did for our CD release concert. Being a 501c3, we have the advantage of libraries and other organizations will actually put up our posters, where they won't for a lot of commercial organizations, so we have that little advantage too. And so on the left is one page of my one sheet. On the right is a sample ad that we put in the Connecticut Music Educators Association newsletter this summer, and we got a few inquiries that I still hope to close. And that's it. So thank you very much for the opportunity to bring jazz to new and younger audiences.
Steve, thank you very much, and thank you for going first. Great. India, any reactions?
Yeah, well, wonderful presentation, and I'm really excited to see this. A few reactions that I had for you. One, I thought that I'd be interested in seeing what your website looks like, right? So where are you driving people who are looking at your ad or are clicking on your Facebook, and how much additional information are you then able to give them once they get there? I would have loved to have also seen the video. So I'm interested in, like, what does that look like? How engaging is that? Do you have footage from, like, previous performances to give people a sense of what that is going to be or what they can expect from your presentation of the show? And also for people who might not remember what Peter and the Wolf is, like, is there a little tagline you can add to your materials that reminds them of that beloved story to really kind of hook them in again? So thinking about you've done a great job of thinking about your segments, so thinking about people who you have already in your community that you can instantly reach out to, thinking about expanding your growth and your reach through the other paid email platforms that you mentioned you'll be working on, but how do you loop that all in and touch each of those audiences several times, right? So it takes about seven kind of interactions for people to think about converting or purchasing a ticket or coming to your show. And so how are you doing that throughout all of your different mediums? So your email and your web page and your social media assets. So I thought it was really great looking at it, and also thinking about having different forms of ads or different forms of posters for different audiences. So the education platforms that you have will really like to have that in-depth information about the show, but something on Facebook, a new audience that isn't really familiar with you or familiar with what it is that you do may need something shorter that they can kind of grab onto quickly. So just thinking about those different things. But all in all, I think is really great. You have a great handle on the education component, and I think the teachers in the schools would really appreciate that.
Okay, thanks. Denny?
Yeah, nice job, Steve. The things that stuck out for me that I liked were that it sounded like you really knew your audience, right? And that's absolutely critical in starting any project. It's like, who are you really trying to? You're trying to elicit a reaction from somebody. We all are, right? When we're marketing, and I like the way you broke it down, right? You have to know that. I also thought that I liked the storyline. I thought the storyline was really good as well. The thing that it seems to me like there's a way to, when you're trying to get people to react to something, right? They're reacting because they have an emotional, kind of connection to it, or some type of emotional reaction. And it seems to me like in the story there, like maybe you could put some items in there that, especially with Peter and the Wolf, where it has a history, it relates to children, right? And they can almost take a more family-oriented approach to the story. You know what I mean? Just to kind of to maybe get people think, yeah, maybe I'll take my family out to that or my kids out to that. Tagline elicited a great reaction from this crowd. So obviously I think you hit on something there. I also thought in the strategy, your very first bullet point, and I can't remember what they all were, but you had a 5% success rate, which I thought was realistic, right? I think it's like you want to make sure that you're not biting off more than you can chew when you do these kinds of things, right? So, and a caveat here: I'm not a specialist in event marketing here. You've got your expert right here, so I don't pretend to. But I'm looking at this more from from just a basic fundamental marketing level, right? So keep that in mind. And then the last note that I made, I had a hard time. I did see your presentation before, but I really wanted to make sure I had an organic reaction to these presentations, so I didn't make elaborate notes on them. And I didn't see. I wasn't sure in the last couple of slides if I saw collaborations, like specific collaborations, because the outreach that you're doing is to public schools and institutions, and I think I felt like I wanted to hear more about how you were going to collaborate with them to draw interest in the performances and bring audiences in. So.
Thanks, Denny. Megan?
Hello. I think your presentation was great. The one thing that stood out to me first was in how compelling, the storyline is and was in your presentation. I'm wondering if there is a way that you can create this visual component that kind of speaks to the audience that you're talking about. Maybe thinking about collaborating with some animators or, that's a great idea. And really using that to not just sell the concept or what you're doing, but engage, make that connection. So that was the first thing. And then the second was, and I know you mentioned creating a curriculum. And I think that's very important to have some sort of study guide in correlation with all of this. I think arts institutions and organizations and other educational organizations or in schools, of course, they're going to want to be able to follow the story. And I think for kids that don't know, you're going to want to kind of bring them through the story and have these educators be able to talk to them maybe in advance or after, and just make that connection. And then the last thing was to speaking to the live presentation. I know you kind of just you had the concert, the album release party or event on there, and I would expand on that more. It's something that can be presented outside of schools and at other venues and maybe festivals. So just to think more about how to do that beyond just the way that you had expressed it.
Great. Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And just before we call up our next presenter, I want to invite folks in the back. You're certainly welcome to stand if you want, but we do have seats. If you have an open seat next to you, could you just raise your hand for a minute? No pressure, but if you want to sit down. I forgot something really important to say, and I'll say it while maybe some of that movement's happening. And that's the criteria that we've asked the judges to review for. 4 pieces: the creativity of the plan, the thoughtful use of online and offline components, the plan's effectiveness, and the feasibility. Don't worry, the presenters knew this before, and the judges knew it before. I just wanted to also share it with you. Great. Next up, we have Stacy Griesbach.
Yes, you
Oh,
may.
bribery. Somebody's been watching Shark Tank, I think.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. I fall to pieces each time I see you again. I fall to pieces. How can I be just your friend? Hi, I'm Stacy Griesbach, and thank you so much for having me, Jazz Congress. I'm here to present, a little nervously, my American Songbook, if I can get this to move. I am reimagining classics of Patsy Cline, and I'm debuting my first album this fall. So Patsy Cline was a woman of first. She was a country music trailblazer. Her first single was in 1961 with I Fall to Pieces. Patsy Cline was the first female country singer to perform down the street at Carnegie Hall, to headline her own show in Las Vegas, and to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. So the story for me is this is the first ever full-length jazz tribute album to the late Patsy Cline. And for me, I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. I live in Los Angeles now. But I grew up with the Nashville sound, the American songbook that comes from Patsy Cline and Ernest Tubb and Hank Williams and Merle Haggard. And so to me, when I was creating my album, I thought, why not do something that's authentic to me from my sound? We might ask, why now? Why is this album important? And I feel like we have an opportunity to bridge genres and build fans. To me, we're more than ever now, we're looking for human connection. And we're looking to see opportunities to bring people together. Patsy Cline, in my opinion, crosses over. And it might be an opportunity for us to introduce country music fans to the jazz genre through this musical icon. My album is really about a cross-pollination of creation. And to me, that's all about love and abundance, and isn't that why we're all here? I have 4 main goals that I'm really looking to drive home through the marketing of my entire album, though today I'd really like to focus on creating awareness. But just so you have it, I'm looking to drive transaction, obviously, to my album. But in addition to that, I'm looking to create a Patsy Cline scholarship with donation opportunities around it. I'm also looking to explore alternate business models, looking at film and television licensing opportunities, and of course, leveraging the digital landscape. But really, it's all about celebrating Patsy Cline's legacy. So the strategy is clear to me. It's to remind fans how powerful these songs are, to create an emotional connection with the Patsy Cline and country music fan, to engage fans in jazz with smart, interesting charts and awesome musicians, and then to find a new way to present me, a new artist, someone coming onto the jazz scene that's brand new. So I think this presents a neat strategy for me. My audience segments are 3. I've defined the Patsy Cline fan really through embracing nostalgia. There's a lot of baby boomers right now in the country music genre who are looking potentially for new music and could be exposed to jazz. The fan of the jazz music, really by looking at this new definition of what a standard could be. How could we look at the Nashville Songbook to really broaden the scope of jazz? We've done it before with hip hop, with R&B, with a lot of different musics, but we haven't seen too much in the country music world. Also, the alt country and indie music fan, there's a different approach to country. So here are a couple tools and tactics I'm going to walk you through very briefly today. My biggest concept is really to create a fan base. So for me, it's through house concerts. I'm new on the scene, and I'm looking to really engage a fan and engage someone with my story to create a connection. So what I'd like to do is create an intimate house concert where I go around through 4 different legs of the United States and really offer an opportunity to connect with fans and build my fan base. I'm looking to theme them with Patsy pairings, so partnering with regional wine and alcohol sponsors, and really create an evening. So these lovely judges were gifted with hors d'oeuvres like the deviled egg. So back in the 1950s, the cocktail party was really a thing, and I'm looking to reimagine it, update it, and upscale it. Obviously, this provides an opportunity for influencers to post on social media, and it expands my story outside of just the music, hoping that these people will create that emotional connection and actually share and evangelize for me. So I'm looking to really go into each market or city and book advanced promotion, working with possibly jazz and country radio, but then also working with Julie Fudge, who's Patsy Cline's daughter, to pitch interviews about the legacy of Patsy Cline. In Los Angeles, I'm looking to do something a little different with the 20th anniversary of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, possibly creating a little bit broader of a house concert. Throughout this entire house concert promotion, I'm looking to market the story through publicity, social, influencers, and paid media. It's all about cutting through the clutter on social. So I'm looking to really create some great behind-the-scenes graphics, images, videos, all throughout the preparation of this, but then leading through the album release itself. And what's going to be key is Patsy Cline's fans. They're the #1 core to my group, or to my audience, and there's fan sites and the Patsy Cline Museum, so I'm hoping to involve both of those in my campaign. So here's where the monies from Jazz Congress will help. Obviously, through the local promotion, I'm looking to hire a company called Radio Tag, who really goes in a market and gets into the nook and crannies of everything. Obviously, YouTubers developing the localization of creative assets, and then these Patsy pairing essentials. You haven't seen them, but the judges have these beautiful Patsy Cline plates that the hors d'oeuvres were settled on. So here's just a very quick overview of the budget, but primarily focused on what needs to be paid for, since I'll be driving a lot of editorial and publicity outreach. And with that, I'm out of time, but I will leave you with a message from Julie Fudge. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here, but she is Patsy Cline's daughter, and so she's addressing the Jazz Congress here. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Stacy. India?
Wonderful. Always love snacks, Stacey. So nice start. I thought it was a great presentation. It was very unique. The project that you're working on, I think, will speak to a lot of different people in different segments, and is something different that I think a lot of us haven't seen. So one of the things, one of your goals is exposing people to country music and exposing country music fans to jazz, and so that, I think, will be accomplished. So congratulations on that. I will say that I was very kind of engaged with your presentation and really interested in knowing. I think one of the key points that will help you a lot in getting out this message is, what is that content looking like, the production of your content to really kind of share and show the story. I think will be really important for your target audiences. But how are you collaborating also? The idea of working with the Country Music Hall of Fame, I think, will be really helpful to you. And using their audiences, using the people who come through their doors, because you're promoting your CD, they don't necessarily have to be in the space or in the city or in the town. They can be kind of anywhere, but utilizing that platform to try and reach those audiences, I think, will be really helpful. So thinking about what kind of assets can you provide them to help expand your reach and grow your reach and your impression. So that would be one thing for sure. And then also thinking about, because Patsy Cline is really iconic in the country music world, are you able to perhaps work with other people on social media that you don't necessarily know but who are strong fans of hers? Maybe they can do a cover of her song that helps you to then promote your CD release, and that also kind of elevates and expands your visibility as well. So I think those things would be really helpful.
Great, thanks. Megan? I'm jumping around a little bit.
Okay.
Shaking it up.
I love the concept. And I really appreciated the part when you broke down the kind of crossover appeal and building the connection. We do, my company, Revive Music, we do a lot of the same thing and have a lot of the same philosophy. So that really stood out. I would say with the strategy part, I wish I had more time to go through it a little deeper with you, but I feel like you needed to dig a little deeper when talking about defining the audience. I think, doing these house concerts, you got to think about the different markets you're in, and I know you had a plan to kind of partner with some radio stations and things of that nature. It's not always guaranteed that you'll get that kind of promo. So I would really think about how to promote these concerts in different markets on your own. just because you don't know how that might plan out, being able to get outside funding or sponsors or getting radio stations on board, things of that nature. And then the last part, really feel like this is bigger. It could be bigger. And I mean, I see like this, really large presentation and tribute and collaborations with other country artists and even jazz artists, maybe something that you consider curating and using it to kind of jumpstart this whole thing that you're trying to build, Yeah, but overall, I think it was really great and a unique project.
Great, thanks. Denny?
Great presentation, and you must have known I didn't have lunch. The other presenters, if just a note for me, because I'm also trying to take notes and be thoughtful here, to slow down just a little bit. You guys have done these presentations, like it was, not just you, but Steve too. I'm like writing furiously here, and I want to give you good feedback, right? I like the story, and what an interesting, unique, project, and I don't, yes, and if it's true that it's the first jazz tribute, that's great. There's always a value in being first to something, and if you can lay claim to that, there's always a good way to, to position that. I think with regard to the audience, I think you could stretch that a little bit more. It's a good start with Patsy Cline fans, jazz fans, and country fans, right? In a way, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. You could go a little bit deeper in that. Look at the success of her songs. Look at who's covered her work before. Look at what feature films or movies have been, or her songs have been, featured in. There's a lot of other ways that you could look and see who might have some type of an emotional connection to not just her as an artist, but maybe one of her songs, right? Songs mean something to all of us. We have our wedding song, we have our first kiss song, we have our, whatever it is, our first concert, experience. We all have different connections to songs, so you could probably mine that just a little bit more. I like the collaborations and the partnerships, right? Some of those are very challenging to put together, but the fact that you're thinking in that direction, I think makes sense. I agree a little bit with some of the previous comments about it. It feels like this could be, there could be a little bit more to this. I think the house concerts, I applaud your self-awareness that, you're just getting started. And it's like you're leveraging not Stacy, but you're leveraging Patsy, right? And you're attempting to do that. And I think it's smart to try to do something that you can measure and that you can have some success on. The house concerts feels a little bit small to me, though. It feels like if you're going to reach enough people, that you're going to be playing a ton of house concerts. There's going to be a lot of work, right, to get that done. So my sense is that I kind of wanted to see a little more ambition in that. But I think the way you approach those, hey, I'm going to get some wine sponsorships, I'm going to work in the local communities, I think the thought process was there behind that, but I think you could find a way to just ramp that up a notch. And then I like the charity idea. That's always a good emotional thing to have in a marketing plan. And then my last comment is that you've been anointed, right, by the Patsy Cline estate, by her daughter, right? I think there's more that could be done with that. If she's really on board for this, if she's a fan, if she has said, please do this, and, please carry on, what my mom has started. And there might be more there. And there might be other influencers that you could get to provide a quote or to provide, just a quick social media video or something that says, this is a great album. And I think there's more that could be done there. It might take some time to kind of figure out who that is and how to get there, but once you start the campaign and you start promoting the record, that can be really valuable. And, and it brings a relatedness to you that that fan otherwise might not have, right? Because they know the influencer, right?
Great. Thanks, Denny. All right. Next up, we have Amanda Eckery.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Eckery. I'm a vocalist, pianist, and composer, and this March I'm going on tour to share my new album, Keys with No Purpose. Keys with No Purpose is my original album written as a reaction to the sexist culture women continue to face in jazz and beyond. Lyrics are based on interviews I conducted with 4 young females in jazz, our news articles such as the Boston Globe's expose on Berklee jazz faculty, and research I've done on female band leaders and jazz education. The album features my 11-piece large ensemble, which allowed me to explore different textures, highlight my uncommon musical influences, and write music that had the density and energy needed to represent the content. I released the album on November 3rd on all digital platforms with a limited number of physical CDs, which came with a custom-made keychain that I designed in my dad's garage. So I'm currently planning a 3-city East Coast tour. The tour will not only feature performances of the album, but also Keys with No Purpose songwriting workshops in each city. The workshops are to discuss current gender issues and serve as a catalyst for songwriting, self-expression, and support for females. My work as a teaching artist is extremely important to me because I believe it is a way to directly enact change.
Hey, Amanda, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Of course.
This is like a really important topic. If you could slow down just a little bit.
Okay.
Right? It's like, it's great. I love what you're saying, but I really want to capture everything that,
Great,
that
yeah.
you're saying.
I just want to get the time.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? I have it on good authority that Aaron's not going to kick you out.
Thank you.
If you go a little over. So.
Okay, great. Okay, so the workshops. By incorporating community-based interaction and teaching as part of the Keys with No Purpose tour is key towards making direct, meaningful, and practical change towards gender equality. We'll be playing in Boston, Philadelphia, and here in New York with workshops at the Women's Center of Cambridge, the Girl Scouts of Eastern Pennsylvania, and Girls Inc. My big picture goal is to bring awareness to the complex stereotypes and barriers that females face in jazz music. I want jazz musicians and female supporters to connect with the Keys with No Purpose story and better understand the female experience in jazz culture. To make this overall goal happen, I'd like to have 50 Instagram posts with hashtag Keys with No Purpose, which will bring awareness and unite a community online. Have at least 40 people at each performance to experience firsthand the story I have created and to see a gender-balanced band. I'm not a one-woman with an all-male band. I make sure that it's even and that they're qualified, fantastic musicians, so it's a visual experience as well. Have at least 10 participants at each workshop to directly foster creativity and conversation around gender. Sell 60 CDs and handmade keychains, which will bring awareness in a more organic way. What are you listening to? Or where'd you get that keychain? And finally, have 50 newsletter signups so I can continue to share stories, events, and research that promote gender equity in jazz. To achieve these goals, I've created a 3-part marketing strategy that includes a grassroots influencer campaign calling on friends and colleagues to post about sexism and promote tour dates, partnerships with local organizations for workshops and merchandise sales, and finally, print and radio promotion. For my grassroots influencer campaign, I thought, who better to promote this tour than the females that live this story every day? Friends and peers that have shared their stories and are working tirelessly to change the narrative of jazz. This is a list of 50 females and female supporters who I personally know and have had conversations with about gender justice. I plan to send each of them a CD and a key and ask them to create their own, create a short video of them creating their own purpose to this key and share it with me, hashtag Keys with No Purpose, on Instagram. It could be anything from, I use this key to comb my hair, to scratch my cat, or open my mail. And you can learn all about the metaphorical keys women create in jazz every day next week, LilyPad, 7 p.m. Something simple. For my partnerships with local organizations, I'm working with organizations that I have previously worked with and share the mission of bettering females through opportunities and support. The workshops are cost-free, and participants will write songs centered around female musicianship. I'll also give participants a complimentary ticket to the show that night so that they can see and meet other female supporters in their city. 20% of the merchandise sales at each show will also be donated to the organization that I work with, which will bring organization supporters to the show and also promote the organization to the audience who may not know that the great work that they're doing in their communities. And finally, print and radio promotion. I'll be working with news outlets and radio stations that I already have relationships, but also seeking others to share the Keys with No Purpose story, play some songs, give CDs away, and then also reach a potential audience that may be outside of my social circle. My target audience for the show includes jazz students aged 16 to 25. Research by Tracy McMullen has shown that a lot of jazz gender stereotypes and biases are learned in educational spheres. Therefore, it's imperative that students are aware of these biases so that they can help change the culture. Some of the schools I'm targeting include my alma mater, New England Conservatory, the New School where I currently work, the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, Berkeley, NYU, MSM, and yeah. Other supporters or other potential audience members include supporters of the local organizations I'm working with, supporters of female musicians who support my work, and also the other 10 band members, their supporters, and finally fans of Carla Bley, Frank Zappa, large ensemble music, because that's what it sounds like. Here's my budget breakdown. It includes limited printing, paid social media posts, key and CD manufacturing, postage, and press release editing. As you can see, my tour marketing plan is more than just promoting my tour. It's sharing a story with audiences that can help enact change. It's directly empowering participants at organizations that work year-round to support females. And it's creating an online community that goes beyond the cities that we're visiting, uniting a community of female jazz musicians everywhere. Thank you so much for your consideration, and I hope to see you at a show in March.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Denny, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I am so sorry to have interrupted you. Yeah, really, I did not want to do that, but I felt it was more important to get like the substance of what you were talking about than not. So thanks for letting me interrupt. A lot of things going on here. You're venturing into territory that's really hard, and I commend you for that. Right, in terms of tackling something that's obviously, important to you and is on the tips of, a lot of our tongues these days, right? So, and a good and interesting mix of, real meaningful content, with music that's obviously, close to you and important to you. One of the last slides you put up was your budget slide, and I'm kind of going to use that slide, I think, to maybe make a more general point. Most of the budget, the largest percentage of the budget that you submitted is going to manufacture the keys, and the keys, I believe, are an add-on item. Like you're going to sell the CDs, and they get the key with it, right, so to speak. And you've made that an important component of the whole program. Right, it's the keys with no purpose. The key is obviously key, right? No pun intended. Pun intended. But my sense about this is, putting that much budget into an item like that that's going to essentially be an add-on item or a giveaway. And I have a question about that, right? And you want to put the budget, your budget into, making a connection with people, getting people to come out, right, to do that. And I just question whether that's the best use of those funds, right? You've thought about this more than I have, but that was my first impression, is like, do you want the largest percentage of your budget going to the manufacturer of that particular item, right? So I think there's something in there in terms of, how you approach this. In general, you covered a lot of ground here. I think there might be some confusion with the title and with the tagline in terms of the keys with no purpose. there's something about that I'm uncertain of, right, in terms of how that lands for me, right? And when I first saw it, I had to drill down into, the campaign to see what you were getting at. So in my mind, I question, if I'm seeing this for the first time and I'm somebody that you want to come to that, does the phrase "no purpose" draw me in, right? And I was uncertain, about whether that was the strongest positioning phrase. I like that you had, you've got budget set aside for, online, offline promotion. I thought all of that was good. I think you have interesting content. The fact that you have relationships with some of these women's organizations that you can leverage. You could probably do a little bit more than that, but the fact that you can go in and leverage those relationships, I think, is really critical. There's probably more that you can do there, but that's a really good element of the campaign.
Great, thanks. Megan.
This is such an important subject. I think they're having a panel at the same time with right now with Terry Lynn Carrington. Is it right now? Yeah. You should definitely talk to her. I don't know if you already have. You have? Yeah, they just launched the Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice at Berklee College of Music. And a friend of mine also, Asia, who yeah. So you're connected with them, that's great. And I would also think so the key part, it reminded me of what are they called? This group called, they started an organization called Falling Whistles. And the whistle, it was based out of this guy went to Sierra Leone and was literally like just had to experience the child soldiers that were on the front lines being killed, and they would have the whistle, and that's how they were on the front line. So the whistle would be how that the enemies would strike them first because they were using this whistle. Anyway, they had the whistle. People would buy the whistle as it was a necklace. That's how they donate to the cause. So it sort of reminded me, when I had the whistle, and it really meant something. It was like you connected with the cause, and it's like, I wore it every day, and it I ended up losing it, but anyway, it meant something. And I feel like if you're going to have the key, and it's going to be a necklace, and it's going to be something you really, that's a part of this, to really make that connection with people. Like, so when they're wearing it, it's like they really get where you're trying to go and where you're coming from with this campaign. Because I think the big thing here is that you're building a brand and a movement with this. There's a movement already happening, but what you're doing, and even with the hashtags and the taglines, and it's bigger. It's a subject that's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's something that has to be addressed and talked about. And by putting yourself in the position of addressing and talking about it, you're out there, and it's going to be kind of your responsibility and duty to keep that discussion going. So you even might want to think about how to organize more panels around this and just be a part of that discussion, which you are doing. And I agree with him about the no purpose part. I feel that there is a purpose. There is a purpose. And maybe just rethink about that tagline. Yeah, you just want to make sure you're really making the connection at all times. So,
Right.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. India.
So I thought it was wonderful. I just had maybe three key things. kind of piggybacking on Denny's point, and also Meghan's, is that I was also slightly stumped by the tagline. And however, once I got it, right? And so, what can you do to quickly, help the audience along with understanding that? And perhaps it's a subtype tagline, that kind of gives them a better and a quicker understanding of what that is, which would also be helpful for you and all of your social platforms and all of your influencer outreach as well. And then just the other two things I had is, perhaps I would definitely devote a lot more of the budget to marketing and the exposure and the promotion of it, as opposed to, agreeing with Denny, as opposed to the production and the manufacturing of the keys. Because the keys can really come in different forms. Perhaps when you're working with your influencers, if one is an artist, they maybe sketch something, a design of the key. If one is a dancer, maybe they do some sort of interpretive movement about it. So, what other ways can you incorporate the concept of the key without having to devote your marketing dollars or your production dollars to that? So that might be another idea. And then also just thinking a little bit about how can you quickly tell the story and integrate some of your collaborations and your women and girls programs into that, so making sure you have all of the materials that you need. Can you interview some of the girls at maybe the girls club to talk about their experiences with that, to really kind of work through that emotional connection to why what it is that you're doing is so important.
Great. Thank you. Okay, up next, Benny Benack III.
Some copies of the first CD to take a look at. Okay, well, thank you to all of you for being here, panelists as well. Thank you. We're throwing a lot at you guys. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. My name is Benny Benack III. My marketing pitch is my sophomore album, a lot of living to do. And with music, with an album, it all starts with the personnel. And holding it down in the rhythm section, we actually just recorded on Friday, was the great Christian McBride on bass. So the hard part is done. We already recorded the music, and it's going to be swinging. It's going to sound great because he is one of the best in the world. We have Mr. Ulysses Owens, Takeshi Obayashi, some other guest vocalists as well. And there's 12 tracks, some standards, original music that I write. I'm a singer and trumpeter, so I write some vocals that are originals, as well as instrumentals. And the story, sophomore album, a lot of living to do, builds on his successful debut release, One of a Kind, from 2 years ago, with the swinging sounds of the crooning vocal standards, coupled with crisp, original, brand new standards to be, with jazz luminary Christian McBride lending his masterful bass skills. This album shows the world Benack has officially arrived, my tagline, through the majesty of song. Life's a ball, if only you'd know it, and it's all just waiting for you. You're alive, so come on and show it. There's such a lot of living, such a lot of living, such a lot of living to do. That's about the tempo we recorded it at. So, furthermore, you talk about distribution, production, quantity. This first album was kind of my learning experience. I put this out completely by myself, and I had a lot of speed bumps. I learned a lot about this aspect of the system, and one of which is CDs, right? We're talking about physical distribution, and this is something in today's day and age I kind of go on a lot. People talk about digital versus physical, and when I did my first record, I asked for 2,000 CDs because 2,000 was cheaper than 1,000, and even the distributor told me I was crazy. He said, no, you don't want 2,000. It's a jazz album. It may be 1,000, and then you could maybe order another 1,000. I said, no, I want 2,000, and I gave 250 of those away to radio stations because I used all of the saliva in my mouth to stamp these envelopes, 250 of them all over my room, sending them out to every little radio station everywhere. And I did that myself as well. And so that was 250 gone, and then I spent the rest of the year touring and playing gigs, and I've got rid of all of them. I have about 2 boxes left, and some more that are also for sale today, incidentally, if anybody is interested. Another angle that I'm interested in pursuing with this album, where the cost really becomes into play, is vinyl, which is something that's coming back and is cool. And the idea is that people come up to me at concerts now and they say, I'm buying your CD. I don't even have a CD player anymore, but I just want to support you. I love your music. So my thinking is, if they're going to pay $15 for a CD just because they want to remember this concert, they want to remember this experience, why not pay $30 for a vinyl for the same thing? Because it's not even about listening to it. They're going to go on YouTube, they're going to go on Spotify and listen to it free anyway. So if they're going to buy this as a memento, why not buy a record? Why not have CDs? And going along with that, we have merchandise. You can see on all the slides, I have a logo that on some of these examples I gave the panelists. I worked with an artist to craft the logo, and I'm just going to plaster that on everything. T-shirts, mugs, notepads with my notes, everything. And the big key here is streaming. I'm going to be devoting a lot of my resources towards pitching for placement on playlists. We're talking about State of Jazz on Apple Music, the front page of Apple Music, Vocal Jazz, anybody's playlist that's coffee table jazz, rainy day jazz, midnight jazz. I want my music on your playlist, getting some streams. And furthermore, you talk about the audience. Now, it might be a little bit pie in the sky of me to just, kind of say, oh, one and all. Everyone has been talking about having a specific audience, but it's really something that I believe in very strongly, is this idea of my music there being something for everyone. And we're talking about the vocal side of things. As a singer, people think of Michael Bublé, they think of Harry Connick Jr., they think of Tony Bennett, and I'm happy to siphon off of all of those people that love that music. But as a trumpet player, as an instrumentalist, the music that I write, the music that I play is there for the jazz audience, the people that are coming to Rose Hall, the people that are coming to Dizzy's, that aren't just listening to jazz music on the radio. Talking about the album will serve to satisfy both music your mom would cook to and hard-swinging contemporary jazz. This idea that there is something for everyone in the music. And I continue to talk about the digital world versus the print world. On my first album, I did what I thought you were supposed to do. I hired a PR person. I gave them thousands of dollars. I hoped for my downbeat review, and I gave the radio person $2,000, and I said, give me the labels. I'll mail it myself and save a little bit of money. And it wasn't that wasn't successful, but I really underestimated this brave new world of digital streaming. And I partnered with The Orchard, which basically, they're a digital distributor that will put it on Apple Music, put it on CD Baby, put it on Amazon. And the chart that you see there, let me use the laser pointer, that's just basically saying the money that came back to me. And it's not insignificant. And when you're talking about recouping your costs, that's important. Because it is PowerPoint, we have pie charts, we have graphs. Basically, this is just saying the number of streams on Spotify. 85,000 streams on Apple Music, 178,000. The digital album sold, I sold over 60, and that's all available through Spotify for artists. And you can see on this pie chart is basically different countries. What different countries were people listening to my music? What different parts of the world? And so those are places I can focus the advertising on. You talk about advertising, I have a partnership with P. Marriott, my endorsement company, so when I didn't get my downbeat review, I was a little bit down in the dumps, but I did have a full back page ad in the same issue talking about the album through my endorsement company, so I would definitely put a pin in the hat for them. And something, of course, that's very important for all of us, Instagram, Facebook artists, all of these sponsored posts, using that information that I have about what parts of the world people are listening to my music and focusing my campaign on that. This is just basically EPK, the video team. We're gonna have a long video, we're gonna have a little sizzle video for Instagram, we're gonna have something that's digestible, artwork, photographer in studio, all of that. The budget that I'm at is $12,000 before I've even decided to spend money on PR. So obviously, you know that $1,000 would go to good use pretty quickly. So thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Megan, what thoughts do you have for Benny?
Hi. I thought your presentation was pretty thorough, and I really appreciate how you you had that experience, right, where I've consulted and managed a lot of artists and been through very similar frustrating experiences where, I've worked with artists where they've put in $6,000 into a PR company and literally didn't get shit back. It happened. It's happened a lot, and I've had to come in and or they'll come to me and say, what do I do? And sometimes they've already made the decision, and I'll come in in the middle of something and try to navigate as best as possible and help them. And, you know, PR companies, and I'm not, you know, calling out PR companies, but there are some, because the jazz, the genre it's a difficult world in the industry that we're navigating right now. So it takes strategy and beyond just PR. So I appreciate, you know, where you went as far as understanding the world of streaming and utilizing. One thing that I'm still learning too is monetizing streams and going into a whole other world of just digital marketing. So I think you're on the right road with that, and just to keep going down that road and exploring. Outside of that, I mean, PR can still be important though. So figuring out a way to maybe, you know, work out a strategy in advance, do more research on companies that can really support your vision. And maybe it isn't just a traditional approach. I mean, what you have kind of can be possibly crossover. So you might want to look into other PR companies that aren't just in the world we live in. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. India.
Great. I really enjoyed your presentation, and you know, some kind of just key things that jumped out at me. One, I thought that the tagline that you had, "A lot of living to do," was great, because we all have a lot of living to do, and I thought that's great. So I thought that instantly connects people, right, to your music. But really thinking about, you know, one thing I would challenge you to do is to put yourself out there, which I'm not sure if you're already doing, right? But thinking about your social platforms that you're working on developing, like how do people relate to you as a person, as an artist? So, you know, coming together, you want your song on everyone's playlist, but what's your playlist? What are you listening to? You know, like how are people connecting to you on that way? And using content at your performances, or, you know, social media, Instagram, you in a cab, like that type of stuff. Like at a certain point, I want to not just be connected to your music, but I want to be connected to you as a person. So that would be one thing I would say. And that would also go to help keep people engaged in you and your music and on your social platforms that you then can leverage to, you know, market and promote your CD. And then I thought that the description that you had of your story, while amazing, was a little long, right? So I would just suggest maybe cutting it down a little bit, which is stuff that you can use when you're doing your radio promotions, when you're putting something up on the website. Just making sure that that's short and sweet when you're using that. And yeah, just lastly, I would also maybe drill down a little bit more in your audience. Right now is kind of like everyone. So how can you be a little bit more focused that would help you use your money and place it wisely?
Great. Thanks, India. Denny?
A lot of respect for what you're doing, all of the independent artists that are trying to do what you're doing. It's so hard. It is. I get that. I so get that. And I've seen that, you know, year after year throughout the time that I've had in this business. You know, kudos on the collaborators, right? You got a great band, right? That's, you know, and that's something right there. That's, you got to have a good piece of music. Haven't heard this, but looking at the collaborators, there's a certain level of trust that I'm automatically going to have. In fact, sometimes the complaints that I hear from fans that I get a chance to talk to is that, you know, sometimes we fail to put the sidemen on the backs of our products, right? And it's like they want to know who's playing. It's an important element. So just starting there, you got to start with your music and take care of your music, and you obviously did that, or attempted to do that at a high level, you know, with this recording. I think that I'm a big fan of knowing who your audience is, and you know, I think you already know this. It's, you know, you have a splash statement of it needs to be everybody, and you want it to be everybody, and I get how much you want it to be everybody. But you don't get to everybody, you know, right off the bat. You got to start somewhere. So I think you could really fine-tune that more, drill down on it. You got to take off your artist hat for a moment, and you got to think like, how am I going to influence a bunch of people to buy my disc over the people that you mentioned, Tony Bennett and, and everybody else, because essentially that's, what you're trying to do, or have them buy it or stream it or download it in addition to. So drill down on that a little bit more. Good that you acknowledged your endorser. Leverage that as much as you can, right? Find out what they can do. Ask questions, push them, do that kind of thing. And I also got the impression like you're doing everything by yourself, right? Like it's all about you, and it's like you're doing everything. And you must have some friends in the same way that you got, Christian and Ulysses to play on the record. You must have some friends who can help you on the marketing side, people who have been there, who have done that, who are in your camp, who might be willing to help, provide services or whatnot. Look within your circle of influence and see if you can find some people who kind of have a, maybe an emotional investment in you or your success or whatever, and see if you can leverage that.
Great. Thanks so much. Okay, our last presenter, Deanna Witkowski.
She composes a jazz mass. Reading this headline 18 years ago changed my own career trajectory. That was the year that Dr. Billy Taylor invited me to perform at the Kennedy Center's Mary Lou Williams Festival. Now, I didn't know much at the time about Mary Lou Williams music, I'm ashamed to say. So I took it upon myself to start learning pretty quickly. I visited the Institute of Jazz Studies at Rutgers, where her archives are held, and there I read this headline. At the time, I had just moved to New York as a freelance jazz pianist with a full-time church music job, and I had written 2 of my own jazz masses. Now with Mary Lou as my mentor, I began to book my trio in churches around the country, doing my own sacred music. To date, we've performed in 95 churches across the country, and the 2 musical constants that we always use are the core trio and a singing congregation, often a choir. Here's an example I just worked with a 900 voice choir at St. Olaf College in November. My 2020-21 concert/book tour, Mary Lou Williams, Music for the Soul, will again bring together my trio, but this time with local community choirs, in a program that features Williams' third mass called Williams for Music for Peace, or also known as Mary Lou's Mass, alongside excerpts of my own evening mass. Because I'll also have a book coming out on Mary Lou Williams at the same time, I'll offer a pre-concert talk on Williams' life and her spirituality. Now, Mary Lou said that the purpose of her third mass was to bring people together in love, and she always said jazz is healing to the soul. So our tour tagline is swinging sacred jazz to heal the mind, body, and spirit. My main goal is to sell 85% of the seats at each venue. Now, this is attainable because of who our audiences are. We're going to reach beyond just the diehard jazzers like all of us in this room, to contemporary choral music fans of groups like Take Six, as well as groups like new music groups, The Crossing. And we'll be highlighting a key piece of the sacred choral repertoire that is overlooked and that these audiences are going to want to know. We'll also target readers of my book. If I go back to this last slide here, my book's going to be printed in this series by a Catholic publisher called Liturgical Press, and it's a series that's meant for the general reader who wants to know about Catholics who led extraordinary lives, and that's a big part of Mary Lou's story. So these people who read my book won't necessarily be jazz musicians who read Linda Dahl's biography on Williams and know everything about her. We're going to reach people who will know nothing about Williams potentially, but after they read the book, the hope is that they'll be curious about listening to her music. One specific audience. So I was just in Pittsburgh last month, and I was doing a keynote speaking and performing presentation at the University of Pittsburgh on Williams sacred music. And I learned a lot there about who my audience is going to be when we return there in March 2021 at a large church to do this performance. So our audience will be people who listen to the great new 24/7 jazz station in Pittsburgh, WZUM. As well as people who attend different concert series at churches. And I also went and talked with music directors of various African American Catholic churches who are interested in the concert. Also, students at the Afro-American Music Institute. We will be creating a choir with students from this institute, as well as with university students from Pitt, from Duquesne, and from local church choirs. So we're going to really bring the community together, just as Williams wanted to happen in her music. So I've touched on some of this already, but I plan to definitely leverage the publicity and the momentum that I'm getting in Pittsburgh. I mean, I live here, but I'm going back to Pittsburgh in June. I got invited back just from this presentation at the university. I'll be there doing a 3-day workshop on Williams sacred music for the Catholic diocese. So I already have an interview set up in June with classical WQED, as well as with a local Catholic paper called the Pittsburgh Catholic. And then my trio will be back in September of next year performing at East Liberty Presbyterian. East Liberty was where Mary Lou grew up, performing on their concert series there. And I plan to ask them if they will send out an e-blast for the concert at, I can't say the venue because it's 90% confirmed yet, if East Liberty Pres will send out an e-blast to their subscribers for our concert and vice versa. So I will definitely be using video, making a 2 to 3 minute promo video on my backstory with Mary Lou. This is pre-existing material on my website. I have a whole page on Mary Lou, along with a sample program from a similar concert we did a couple years ago, and it also has audio clips. Also with social media, I have a monthly email newsletter, 1,800 subscribers, that's broken down into various cities, and including one that's specifically on people who bought my last record, which was all jazz arrangements of traditional hymn tunes. I'll use other organizations' email newsletters. You can see some of those there. And we'll continue to post blog posts on Williams. My publisher will also partner with me in listing the tour in their quarterly catalog, as well as at conferences where they exhibit. And here's what the $1,000 will cover. Basically, a social media consultant to help generate keywords for Facebook ads, and a general assistant just for 20 hours of work. So thank you so much for helping me to spread the word about Mary Lou Williams, Music for the Soul.
Thanks, Deanna. All right, India, what thoughts do you have for Deanna?
Sure. Thoughts for Deanna. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, and also for continuing on with her story, right? It's so important and really great that you're doing that. I think you've put a lot of thought into who your audience is, and you know who your audience is, you know who your target is, and I think that will help you a lot in reaching your goal. I would say that I think it's great that you also have your own audience, so you have your own subscriber list that you can reach out to, people who have attended concerts in the past that you can reach out to and who have purchased things. So that's a wonderful start for you to continue with that. I would say that you talked about creating a piece of content that would be about 2 to 3 minutes long, which I think is wonderful to have on the website, but I would slice that up into like 30-second pieces that tells a story that you can distribute over time, right? Leading up to the full video or the full story of what it is that you're doing, and using that on social to continue to drive people to your website and get more information. So that would be kind of like the key aspect that I would share there with you. And then also, I'm not sure if you plan on doing this, but utilizing your blog post that you're going to do as content on social to, again, continue to engage people in what it is that you're doing, and really finding a way to make that connection with the church communities, going into them, because they have such a strong community, and once you make that personal connection, I think they will be willing and happy to support you.
Great. Denny.
Good presentation, thank you. I don't have a whole lot to add here. I like your goal of 85% of people in seats is very specific and measurable. I felt like on your strategy, you had venues, schools, and Catholic media listed, but I felt like they needed some more detail there under those specific subheaders. Like the idea that you have a publisher that you can partner with, right? Your plan is very specific, right, and with some specific outcomes, and I thought it made sense.
Great, thank you. Meghan.
I think it's really, telling that you're as passionate as you are with this. I really got that, and I think it's great that you're using your platform and building a platform to continue to talk about Mary Lou Williams' her legacy, and you're pretty much off to the races already. You've got a plan. You've already done all these performances. I was looking at the budget breakdown, and I was thinking, and I agree with India about having more of a visual component, obviously, because of people's, be able to digest content, and having a smaller window for the content, like 30-second pieces is exactly what I would say. And but to have a visual component to this, I think, is really important. And I see it. I also see it just like your project, it's something bigger too. I can see this being, you already did. What did you have? 900. That's pretty huge. But I see this, taking on another light and maybe being presented in another way at big concert halls and things of that nature. But overall, going back to the budget, I think you might want to consider spending some of that money on producing content. I don't know about the social media aspect just yet. I think utilizing the content first, and then you'll figure out like a social media action for the content after. But other than that, I think it was great.
It's great. Can we just get another round of applause for all of our presenters? Stephen, Stacy, Amanda, Benny, and Deanna. Really great. Thank you so much. So I just want to say, I want to thank all of you in the room with us, and of course our judges. In case you couldn't tell, this was by far our most experimental session, unlike anything we've ever done. As a result, we're a little over time. So the way this is, we're not going to be able to do the Q&A with our presenters right here, and we're going to announce the winner via an app notification, or it'll be in your inbox. If you all want to hang out with us, we can figure that out, but we don't have to clear the room. We have to clear the stage because we have another great session starting at 2:45. Presenters, you'll hang with us. So again, if you want it, we'll figure it out, but we're going to do it via the app. I apologize about that. It's part of the journey. One thing about the Jazz Congress is really trying to keep it fresh, and the way you keep things fresh is you try new things. New things don't always work out exactly, but I think we can agree that our presenters did an amazing job. Our judges did such a great job with constructive feedback. Thank you all. The next session in here is a workshop on making engaging videos with Brian Carter, Grace Kelly, Adam Meeks from Jazzlingen Center, and Eugenia Hahn. Thank you so much.